chat, which is coming from Szczechnica in Poland. And today I'm going to address the question of the Russian mobilization. Part 3, it would be better if I could have done them all in one go, I suppose. But anyway, this is the way things worked out. And this is a live chat, so I would request that you keep language civil, please. So, in the First World War, and I know it's a bit silly to compare things which happened 108 years ago with what's happening today, the German plan was to knock France out in a quick blow, expecting France to attack Alsace and Lorraine, and then, once France was knocked out of the war, to knock Russia out, because they thought Russia would take ages to mobilize, and so they could deal with each enemy at a time. Now, this plan was completely flawed, of course, because to knock France out, they decided to go through Belgium, and knocking out Belgium brought Britain into the war, and as it turned out, the Russian army was able to invade East Prussia. And now, in August and September of 1914, with this invasion, which came really quickly, the Russian army was defeated, completely defeated. Ludendorff, I think, claimed it to be the greatest victory of all time. Maybe that's going a little bit too far, but it certainly would be amongst the greatest. Having said that, the Russian armies were fighting, or rather the commanders, the generals, were arguing amongst themselves. There was no or little cooperation between them, and the Germans were able to pick them off one by one. So that was 108 years ago. Now, the result of the problem here was that because the Russian army had advanced into Germany, it ended up losing huge amounts of equipment. So, but with the war only into its 6th week, and the Russian army had lost the larger part of its basic equipment. However, its mobilization was very successful despite that. And this led to the next problem, because in 1917, when there was the revolution, what caused the revolution was the bread strikes and things of this nature. Now, wars, by their very nature, upset distribution chains. Now, it's very modern now to talk of distribution, supply chains and things of this nature, but they've always existed. Maybe not so complicated as they are now, but they've always existed. Now, in Russia, the problem was the following. If the people who are mobilized are also the people who are producing the food, then there is a difficulty. And so what happened then was that the mobilization was far too successful. The mobilization bit was successful. There was no weapons for these people to go to. There was nowhere for them to go, and they weren't producing food, and they would have been better off being left on their own farms to produce the food, which would have kept the workers working and not rebelling. So what has that got to do with what's happening today? Well, quite a lot, I think. Because in the first place, if 300,000 men, and that, I mean, we have got reports even coming from official media of 1 million, but let's say it's 300,000, because that's what the Minister of Defence says it is. Take 300,000 men of military age out of doing whatever they're doing, and there are people who won't be going, people within the establishment elite, they won't be going to the army. The people within the organs of repression, such as the police, etc., they're not going. People who are students, because they are the wealthy, they certainly shouldn't be going. This is something that the poor and the ethnic minorities have to do. But the poor and the ethnic minorities are also people who are doing the work, and as well, which I'm not suggesting that rich people aren't working, of course, but there are these people are doing what is necessary to put food on the table for other people, not necessarily working agriculture, but whatever they're doing. But if you suddenly take 300,000, 1/3 of a million people out of because young men, they probably all, or large part of them, are working, what is going to happen? It's going to upset the system no end. Right, that's point number one. Point number two. When I was in the army, which is now 40 years ago, there was this idea. I don't know if it's actual fact or it's a rumour or just what people said or what. But the idea was that in Britain, as in most countries or many countries, there is a regular army. These are professional soldiers who do it all the time. And there's a territorial army. The territorial army, supposedly, I think it's 8 weekends a year, plus you're supposed to turn up one night a week for a couple of hours, and you've got to go for a camp for 15 days, and you've got to pass a physical test, which isn't too difficult. Sorry, it's too difficult. Wouldn't be able to pass it now. But anyway, you've got these things. Now, in the Second World War, one of the problems for the British Army was the training of the territorial. So the war started, as far as the UK was concerned, declaration on the 3rd of September, but it took ages before anybody went to France because it was the training to bring up the territorial army up to speed, so to speak, and the regular army, the aim of the regular army was to train conscripts. So the thought in the 80s was that it would be the territorial army which is sent off to Germany to defeat the Soviet invaders, and whilst the regular army was used to train people. Now, the question is, for me, I don't know the answer is, but the question is the following. Given the losses that the Russian army has already suffered in Ukraine, who is going to be doing this training? That's number one. And number two is, does the Russian army have facilities even to house 300,000 people? I suppose I'm sure maybe he's got tents and things of this nature to put 300,000 people up, but whatever, it's not going to be in particularly pleasant environment, given of course as well that winter is coming. Well, it's still September, but winter is coming. So that is how I see this current situation. I think that this is likely, if anything, to lead to more opposition to the regime. Now, another thing we've heard of is people on the streets, heroic, patriotic Russians who are on the streets protesting against this fascist regime. What about, and they are being given their papers to go off to the war. In fact, we've heard things like police standing at the metro stations doing controls. Well, I mean, I've seen this happen in Russia before. I suppose anybody's been in Russia seen people looking at their papers, but then giving people draft papers there and then. The draft papers it's not that you when you're given these papers that you have to suddenly go off to the army immediately. You'll be given, they take your details down, it's written in your identity document where you live, who you are, and all the rest of it, and from there you'll get a call-up notice telling you where to report. So effectively what they've done is probably they've written down who it is, and that person will get the call-up notice there and then. It's not as though they could then be given a call-up notice and then just bin it and continue with their lives. So we've heard these reports, heard them standing at workplaces as well. In my opinion, this is just going to lead to more resistance to the regime. Now, what the regime doesn't want, of course, is organised resistance, and it certainly won't want organised resistance from people who have their hands on weapons. In fact, I would have thought this was quite a dangerous thing to do. Now, so there's been put forward these theories that people are going to be sent as cannon fodder to Ukraine. So get the Ukrainians to shoot these resistors, or these people who are anti-fascist patriotic Russians. So I don't think the regime would be daft enough, in my opinion, to send to even arm people who are opposed to the regime. Well, then again, it might do. I mean, historically, we take even the Second World War. I mean, all Germans were put under arms, and 2/3 of Germans, well, only 1/3 of those bothering to vote actually voted for Hitler. And so a large percentage of those who actually ended up were people even who are violently opposed to the Nazi regime, but they ended up in the German army. Anyway, that's how I see it. I do appreciate that, giving it. Maybe I'm just going a little bit too far with these ideas, these opinions. I don't know. But anyway, that's just one or two things I've got there off the top of my head. Hello. Sorry, I can't see your name, even though I put my dark glasses on to walk out today. So there's a bit of construction going on here. I can't see. I can't see your name. Anyway, good. So thanks for those of you who are being here. If you've got any ideas, do put them below. And one of the things about doing it like this is that I feel as though I can be forgiven if I make mistakes. And good morning. And whereas if I'm sort of doing one that I'm sitting in front of my computer and I dictate it and all the rest of it, I don't think there's far less excuse for having a mistake in doing a video of this nature. Furthermore, it does give you a little bit of a chance to see, in this case, Sheknitsa, a place you've probably never heard of and will never think of ever again. So, all the best from me in Sheknitsa, Poland, and thanks very much for being here today, and I shall try and do more of these talks as and when I can. I also had this idea of discussing on a live thing the previous Friday's video. Anyway, that's just a little idea. Thanks, all the best from me in Poland, and bye for now.